Tanisha, are we expecting any more board members?
I see our chair has arrived.
Oh,
We are ready now.
great. Awesome. Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kalila Slater Harrington. I will be facilitating our Teaching and Learning Committee for the Baltimore City Board of Commissioners today, October 3rd. Out of respect of time, we're going to go ahead and get started. I think that we have all of our board members here, and so I wanted to recognize them. But before I do, consistent with our public board meetings, we're going to ask that everyone mute themselves, and unless you are presenting, please turn off your camera so that we won't have any confusion about who is our speaker at the moment. So I'll ask that all cameras go off except for those who are speaking. Now I'll recognize our other board members, first with our chair. Chair, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. What I see is a lot of things happening in the chat, and I don't know what I've missed. I'm looking at, if I can use my context clues, is it your favorite thing about fall?
Indeed, indeed, it is.
The thing I like about fall is the shedding of things that were old, right? Things that needed to go away to pave the way for things that are new, things that are fresh. And so I like the fall season because we get to experience a little chill, but we also have some time to celebrate the things that are now behind us and prepare for the things that are growing and that are on their way. My birthday is also in December before it becomes winter, so that's another thing that I am excited about in the fall.
Worthwhile celebration. All right, and I think we have, I heard the illustrious voice of our fellow commissioner.
Oh, peace. How y'all doing? Kwame Bay here. Just Commissioner Bay, whatever you want to call me. My favorite thing I put in the chat for fall was dead leaves. They crunch so nice. It's basically along the same lines as Chair McFadden. I like the renewal process. I like being able to look at what things have to contribute that sometimes we don't take advantage of, and understanding that sometimes the things we leave behind are some of the best contributors to our futures. So I really, really am. I like fall, and plus I like the weather. Peace.
Excellent, excellent. I will acknowledge that we have a lot of leaves and s'mores in our chat, as well as fur coats and fashion. Football season is definitely on deck, the weather. But thank you, everyone, for joining today. Yes, it is indeed sweater weather. I love saying that. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. I will repeat that everyone except board and presenters' cameras should be off once we get started here and until it's time for you to present. All right. Let's see. So first up, I believe I am turning it over to our Chief of Academics. Is that correct?
That is correct. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Joan Dabrowski, Chief Academic Officer. We're going to go ahead and get started this afternoon with an update on our work in secondary success and innovation. So I'm going to actually bring my colleague on, the Deputy Chief Academic Officer, Ms. Christina Byers, who's going to get us started this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dabrowski, and good afternoon on this fine fall afternoon. Although I love fall because of the weather and it's not feeling very fall-like today, but I'm looking forward to that cooler weather next week. So it is a pleasure to be here with all of you this afternoon, and we have an update for you tied to our graduation goal that is going to specifically focus on our new Office of Secondary Success and Innovation. And so the last time I was with all of you to talk about our graduation goal was with regard to our compliance report around graduation. And so since then, we have uplifted a new office tied to that around called Secondary Success and Innovation. It is the new CCR, or College of Career Readiness. So we did, and I'm going to get into this in a moment, we did use the opportunity of grounding ourselves in our goal for graduation, our board's goal in graduation, as well as our high school strategy in the design of this new office. And so this afternoon, we are going to share some updates and some progress with you as we have uplifted this new Office of Secondary Success and Innovation. We can go ahead to the next slide. So this afternoon, we're going to again frame our discussion, going back to ground ourselves with our goals and our priorities, specifically our graduation goal and our high school strategy. We're also going to discuss some updates and some progress in the area of secondary success and innovation. We want to talk about our post-secondary work. Specifically, we're going to highlight CTE, and we're going to end this afternoon. You see some of them on camera highlighting one of our schools, really highlighting some of our students who go to Carver. And so they are going to be sharing some of the incredible work that they're doing as part of the Carver House project at the end of our presentation. Keep going to the next slide. Oop. Okay. So I do want to, as always, ground us in our board strategic priorities this afternoon as we share the work of secondary success and innovation. We are really tying that work to board priorities 1, 2, and 6. Keep going. And again, for our district goals, in our office, we actually do tie a lot of our work into all of our district goals. So our work does touch wholeness, it touches literacy, it touches mathematics, and of course it touches graduation. Today, we are going to just dig a little bit deeper though into that graduation goal. As you all know, the goal speaks to having more students graduate on time in their 4-year cohort. We're going to go to the next slide where I do want to just talk a little bit about our sub goals in this area. So with that 76% target by school year 26-27, we have established sub goals that align to getting our students to cross the stage in that 4-year period of time. They are in grade 3, grade 6, grade 9, and grade 11. And I'm going to just quickly review those for the Teaching and Learning Committee as we move into the work of secondary success and innovation. So on the next slide, you'll see this broken down a little bit further. Our 3rd grade sub-goal for graduation really speaks to what the research says about students being on track to graduate at a very young age, which is being able to read on grade level by the end of grade 3. We do have a sub-goal in our middle grades, which speaks to attendance. Again, it intersects a lot with our wholeness goal, but also our sub-goal for our middle grade students speaks to students having a GPA above a 2.0. There's some good correlation between students who have a GPA above a 2.0 finding greater success with being on track at the end of grade 9. Our grade 9 sub-goal is aligned to our work around being on track to graduate by the end of grade 9, looking at our promotion rates, our attendance, and then again, students' GPAs at the end of grade 9. And then at 11th grade, again, looking at attendance, looking at promotion, but also maintaining that GPA to be able to persist through to that last year in grade 12 to be able to graduate in that 4-year cohort. So I wanted to share all of that because that ties to our high school strategy. Our high school strategy, as you remember when I came before you last spring to talk about the compliance report on graduation, I talked about how our high school strategy has really been developed in service of that graduation goal. It does have 5 key areas, focus areas. aligned to some key initiatives. And so again, just want to ground our presentation this afternoon in these focus areas of defining and preparing for success, grade 9 success, high school persistence, enhanced wellness and safety, and central office and high school organizational structures. Before we move into some updates that are tied to this strategy, I do just want to reiterate that part of our sunsetting of what was formerly known as college and career readiness and standing up of secondary success and innovation really aligns to that fifth focus area of how we've organized ourselves centrally to be able to provide better service to our schools who are supporting students in grades 6 through 12. So you're going to hear a little bit about that throughout the presentation this afternoon. And keep going. All right. So we want to begin with some updates and some highlights in 3 critical areas. Last spring, I was here talking to you a little bit about our high school schedule and changing the model for our high school schedule. So we are going to get an update on that. We're going to specifically talk about how we have invested in support for our 9th graders this year, and then update you on the work that we've been doing around mentoring and adult relationships. And so with that, I'm thrilled. I'm at this point going to be turning this presentation over to several of my colleagues in secondary support and innovation. And I'm thrilled that they're here with me this afternoon. So I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Michael Moss. He is our Director of Secondary Success and Innovation, and he's going to provide you with some updates around scheduling and our supports for our grade 9 students.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be here. Talk to you about our strategic scheduling. So this fall, we moved in the majority of our high schools to a 4x4 scheduling model across the district. This allowed for us to standardize scheduling practices for the majority of our high schools, allowing for there to be equity across the district. This provided an opportunity for more equitable instructional experience for schools, and also allowed for uniformity to where credits can transfer across schools. This also allowed for our 9th grade students to earn between 7 and 8 credits initially within the first year, going towards our goal of having a well-rounded curriculum for our 9th grade students, and an opportunity for students by their senior year to earn upwards of 32 credits. For our alternative school programs, they are on a 5x5 schedule, which is similar to our 4x4, which will allow for an easy transition for students in and out of those programs as needed. Go to our next slide. And now I will talk to you about our support for our grade 9 students. This year, we expanded our On Track to Graduate program, which were in a few of our schools as pilots over the past couple of years. And now we've expanded to over 19 schools here in city schools. We hired this summer 19 coordinators, On Track to Graduate coordinators in our schools, and we've been working with our principals individually to ensure that we had the right fit for our coordinators. This August, we held a professional learning opportunity for our OTG coordinators, where we had 100% attendance, even those coordinators who had yet to be PEP'd, and we're happy to report that 84% of the attendees who attended either marked agreed or strongly agreed that they felt confident with their ability to do the role that we are tasking them with in the schools. We are still providing centralized support for the coordinators throughout this year, and for our student success teams at the schools that will work with our 9th graders. And we're working with our coordinators in each school to ensure the first-time 9th graders have coordinated supports that address the root causes that are keeping them from earning 6 credits needed to matriculate to the 10th grade and leave 9th grade on track to graduate. At this time, I am going to pass over to my colleague, Dr. Rudisil.
Thank you, Moss. Good afternoon, everyone. Research suggests mentoring is one of the few prevention and intervention strategies that can effectively address multiple risk and protective factors simultaneously. Our mentoring and adult relationships team, MAR, leads this work in 3 functional areas: mentor recruitment and onboarding, school capacity building, and the 3rd section, programming, guidance, and support. This slide here reflects what we've done in what we're doing. We benchmarked our work reviewing other school districts for comparable mentoring efforts paired with an analysis of our district student mentoring landscape, resulting in a scalable, sustainable infrastructure grounded in evidence-based student mentoring practices. Consequently, expanding into 10 high schools, serving 767 students while engaging 120 prospective student mentoring programs, and also coaching our 3 partners in their school integration practices. Through our school capacity building hub strategy, which is in current implementation mode, we're deepening our school efforts through a consultancy protocol guided by the Search Institute's developmental relationships framework, and leveraging relationship mapping practices and webs of support to increase students' access to mentoring. Our district strategy provides 2 ESSA Tier 1 school-based mentoring framework models for our schools and the resources needed for implementation, monitoring, and improvements. We've laid the foundation and positioned this work for impactful outcomes in the development of quality standards, evaluative benchmarks, and data collection practices aligned with Kirwan. In 5 years, our goal is for 100% of our students to have access to mentors. Thank you for your time today. I'll pass it to my colleague, Aquila.
Aquila, we can't hear you.
Just take this off.
We can hear you now.
Oh, okay, great. It must be the headphones. All right, thank you so much for your patience and time. And so I have the opportunity to talk to you about our post-secondary success arm of our office and our team. And so ultimately, we are committed to successfully navigating our scholars' journey towards post-secondary education. We provide academic and emotional support, ultimately giving our scholars wraparound services that include academic, career, as well as just personal and emotional support so that our scholars are prepared to deal with the complex landscape of post-secondary institutions. All right, next slide, please. All right, and so how we do that, we begin by talking and working closely with our high school counselors. Our school counselors have done some amazing work. And to be quite honest, high schools often experience this disjointed series of support. Through stronger coordination, our post-secondary success offices have helped to better provide supports to our schools as well as to our scholars. Specifically this year, our district team has welcomed 16 new school counselors and making sure that they have the absolute things that they need in order to be successful and providing scholars with college and career planning, as well as crisis support and response coupled with social emotional learning. The recruitment has been a stretch and we continue to push and make sure that our school counselors are very pleased and have a great experience here so we can continue to attract more and more outstanding school counselors. Next slide, please. And so our post-secondary success, wait there. Okay. Next slide. Can they not hear me? Next slide.
We can hear you. Dr. Pfeiffer, can you advance to the next slide? I'm unable to do it.
Well, while we're waiting, let me just say that I can say a ton about that school counseling team. They certainly do an amazing job in making sure that they serve as the primary group, or what I refer to them as like the primary caretakers. And they invite our scholars to know a little bit more about colleges, know a lot more about careers, and even how to manage their emotions. And then they pass it on to specialists. Our specialists bucket into post-secondary advisors. And so once we advance that slide, we're going to talk about the amazing work of post-secondary advisors, and I am so excited. Can't wait to see it on the screen.
And we're working on it.
Sorry about that. It's showing up on mine. I'm just going to re-present. 1 second, please.
Take your time. We're all educators. We know how to be flexible.
There we go.
Awesome. And so now, as our school counselors take in and serve as our frontline, we certainly make sure that there are specialists that are available to support our scholars. And so that specialist buckets into this post-secondary advisors. And so we were able to pilot the post-secondary advisor program in 13 schools from March of 2021 to June of 2023. Our goal is to empower students with personalized guidance, provide them with resources for educators, facilitate events for exposure to college and career opportunities. And I have to say that the pilot team did an outstanding job. There was an increased number of scholars that applied to colleges, scholars that were applying to 3 or more colleges in 1 year. And so we are excited about that. We're uber excited that we were able to ensure that parents were a part of that completion of the FAFSA, which can be a little tedious, but we did it. We increased the numbers. And so all to say that the post-secondary advisors were so impressive that our executive level colleagues witnessed this positive impact and decided to expand the initiative. And so as we move forward into this current year and beyond, we're excited that our high schools, all of our high schools, will have the opportunity to have a post-secondary advisor in their schools. Ultimately, this goal is to make sure that our school communities offer or cultivate a college-going culture. And so we're not just focusing on college. In fact, at this time, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Kumasi Vines, who's going to continue to talk about our career counselors.
There we go. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Kumasi Vines, Director of Career Readiness here at City Schools. So when we're talking about the blueprint for Maryland's future, it's just a reminder for everyone, it's landmark legislation that was passed into law in 2021. And our work in this space aligns with the 3.4.1 pillar that describes how City Schools is going to partner with the Mayor's Office of Employment Development, MOED, and Baltimore City Community College, BCCC, to implement this career advising and coaching net framework. So, high level, this is a collaborative partnership between City Schools, Mayor's Office of Employment Development, and BCCC. Our outcomes for bringing in these coaches is to help our students choose one or more post-CCR pathways. As you've heard before, and when we talk about our career readiness strategy, whether the students are going to 2 or 4-year colleges, 4-year colleges directly into the workforce or into an adult apprenticeship, these career coaches will help those students along that pathway and making that decision on which best option is best for them. Also help students identify career options and develop career competencies and leverage a range of regional partnerships and strategies that align with our local workforce demand and resources. And that really leads to the partnership with the Mayor's Office. So to make sure that we are staying true to our goal, which is making sure our students are prepared for above living wage careers once they graduate. And just quickly, I'll list just 1 or 2 of those highlights. Is coordinating the school-based post-secondary teams. So you're hearing a lot of how our SS&I team and the different reach we have at the school, but we want to make sure that the presentation of resources and services to the school are coordinated with the school-based team to create a really robust and strong offering at the school level for our students. Christina, would you like me to continue?
Yes, please.
All right. So spotlight on CTE. We can move to the next slide. So there's a lot of things exciting happening in career readiness, specifically in our CTE programs. As I've presented before, over the last couple of years, we launched our career readiness strategic plan called A New Pathway Forward back in 2021. And there were a series of things that we wanted to do, and all with the goal of making sure that our students are as prepared as possible for in-demand, high-wage, high-skill careers once they graduate. An example of some of the ways we're increasing opportunities for our CTE students to move to that next step of that in-demand, high-skill, high-wage careers is by embracing the changing economies. And an example of this is the Baltimore Trains for Wind program that we established, where students from Mervo across multiple CTE pathways, including our construction and engineering pathways, they learned about the growing offshore wind industry. And in that program, they also earn credentials in welding, electrical, CPR, and OSHA 10. Investing in our students to be prepared for this growing and looking to the future economies is what we really want to do. So the team, just a couple of highlights of what they did. The team competed in the state and placed first, second, and third. And this is the first time those Mervo students have been engaged with this kind of programming or this kind of career sector, and which earned them an opportunity to travel to Colorado in the spring to compete at a national level. So I know it was a great experience for them. Many of them, it was the first time on an airplane, but even equally important, they're really getting some exposure to renewable energy, green energy, and where our economy and industry sectors are moving towards. Next slide. So we also talked about how we want to create more equitable access to quality programming experiences. And just as a reminder, what the blueprint from Maryland State mandates is that 45% of graduating seniors complete a registered youth apprenticeship and or earn an industry recognized certification. So as we're expanding our CTE offerings, a couple of examples of that is we successfully completed construction of a new dental tech lab, a new surge tech lab at Mervo. We also completed the construction for the renovated HVAC and plumbing labs at Carver. And we are launching or have launched a new nursing CNA, GNA, CTE program at Forest Park. When we look at our expansion of youth apprenticeship opportunities, we have and are continuing to grow these opportunities for our students. School year 22-23, we had 2 students complete, and I think we're going to highlight them a little later. But right now we are on the path for this current school year to have 48 seats across 9 organizations, and that includes some of our district offices hosting apprenticeships. So we are excited about these opportunities in apprenticeships and collaborating with the community. We're partnering with Baltimore's Promise on their Maryland Works grant, in which they're going to use those funds in order to build the infrastructure for apprenticeships so that our students not only get into those seats for apprenticeship opportunities, but receive the support from all of our organizations to ensure that they successfully complete those youth apprenticeship opportunities. And through ESSER funds, we were able to provide some short-term certifications, primarily for schools that don't have CTE programs, but yet another way for our students to receive the opportunity to not only earn their diploma, but graduate with industry recognized certification. Okay. So one of the other points we talked about, increasing the relevance and rigor of our CTE program. So we successfully redesigned or refreshed many of our CTE pathways. And what that means is redesign is making sure that the curriculum, the instruction method, the equipment and material, and work-based learning opportunities are aligned with industry standards and connected to careers that are above living wage. And that process is vetted by industry professionals, post-secondary academic institutions, and members of the business community to make sure we are in line with market demand when it comes to the labor. And we do that on a rotating basis every few years. And refresh is making sure that we have the equipment and material that our students need in order to successfully complete their CTE pathway. revamped and reinvigorated our CTE advisory committees. So the local advisory council committee is the larger body and is mandated through our Perkins grant to have this, and is co-developed with Baltimore City Community College, and they oversee and help advise how we're moving our CTE programs forward. It's completely revamped, making sure that we have members of that committee from multiple sectors of the working industry, and collaborating with many partners across those sectors as well to create opportunities for students. And the Program Advisory Committee, that is a smaller group that is really more industry or sector focused to help advise our CTE pathways to make sure that they're aligned, they're being revamped and refreshed as needed to stay aligned with industry standards. So to improve the effective and efficient use of limited resources, we are developing enhanced professional development for our CTE teachers. This year, we kicked off the first PLC for CTE teachers, and making sure we're partnering with industry to provide externships and teacher training opportunities. We're incorporating the career coaches, of course, via the Maryland Blueprint, collaborating with the community, as I mentioned, with the PAC and LAC and industry partners to provide opportunities and more learning opportunities for our teachers. And as I mentioned earlier, working with Baltimore's Promise to help build the apprenticeship infrastructure and reimagining possibilities with BCCC. And that would include, of course, the collaborating around the career coaches, providing mutual professional development for both of our teachers or instructors, and really looking into how can we utilize dual enrollment for workforce certification that BCCC offers. And so moving on to the celebrations, the fun times, just a really quick overview of this project. So this is celebrating Carver House. Carver House is a renovation project that incorporates building science construction to passive house standards and solar panel installation. The summer 2023, 14 CTE students from Carver, they participated in this project to do both block beautification and construction of the new Carver Hut and the masonry lab that demonstrates how the sustainable building practices are used. Requity Foundation partners with Carver students to renovate the vacant houses known as Carver House. You see pictures a little bit later. Governor Moore toured the house and was extremely impressed with the students in the project. BG&E is installing EV charging stations there, and they also received a grant from ADT for security installation. So if Christina, would you like Carver to speak now?
Why don't we just finish celebrations, but we will then turn it over to our Carver students and staff. Thank you.
Sounds good. So really quickly, because I want to get to the students, some celebrations for our district youth apprenticeships. Mr. Dantes Winston and Mr. Jeremiah Foote this year completed 2 youth apprenticeships. Dantes was a CTE student, business student at Mervo, and Mr. Foote was a CTE automotive student at Forest Park. And Mr. Foote actually received, during the celebration, we had received an offer from Efficiency Enterprises where he did his apprenticeships during our lunch. So it was a really exciting opportunity for both students. And really this shows how our local business community is leaning in for us to provide these opportunities for our students. Okay, now Carver House. We can turn it over to our students and Requity to talk about their experience.
Well, I'll start. Thank you so much, Kumasi. Thanks for doing such a wonderful job capturing what we've been doing with the Carver House. And we want to also make mention about how important it is to have the right culture and support behind this this innovative work that we're doing. And it's easy for me to say that because it was the idea of a student that graduated from Carver. He's on the call, so if you would, I'd like for him to just share some context of how he came to the idea. I coached him back in 2012. I was still in the baseball coach at Carver. My background is in business, and when I met with the athletic director, he said, we don't have a field on campus. We have a very limited budget, and some of the students are going to be new to the game. And I thought, wow, what an opportunity. As long as students can be involved in this process, we're going to take this on, and there's an opportunity to really change the way we think about problem solving. And so, Sterling, if you don't mind, to share the experience, the baseball experience, and how it really led to equity in the Carver House.
Sterling. Sterling.
I'm Sterling. I'm sorry to just be a little bit off camera right now. But to summarize basically what Coach Mike said, he was my baseball coach in 2012. The year before in 2011, we didn't win any games. We was 0-10, I believe. But in 2012, Coach Mike came to us and he said, okay, well, the problem is right now we are practicing on a softball field and we're practicing in the gym. In order to become better baseball players, we need to actually practice on a baseball field. Like we need actual hands-on experience for the sport that we're playing to actually be better baseball players. So he said, you know what? So let's get together. Let's come together as a team and figure out how can we become better baseball players. So we got together as a team and we came up with the idea, transportation. We need transportation to the field because the field was 1.5 miles away. So we got together. Coach Mike bought a van for the team, and we then bust ourselves every day after school to the baseball field. That turned our season around, wound up getting us to the Sweet 16 in the state playoffs. So unfortunately, we didn't win, but we got to the Sweet 16. We won more games than we did last year. After that, I just talked to Coach Mike and I just let him know. I said, hey, we got baseball figured out, but now, I'm graduating and I'm trying to go into the work field, and everyone's just shooting me down. Everybody's saying, oh, you don't have the experience. You have the certification, but you don't have the experience. No, we can't accept you. No, we can't accept you. So I said, that's a problem. We have to figure that out. So how can we now get students to actually go to school for the 4 years and actually get the experience in the trades that they're doing to actually go into the workforce? So my idea was that, we have vacant houses right across the street from the schools. So why can we not, just walk across the street and fix these houses across the street? We have electrical, we have carpentry, we have masonry. We can actually work on these houses day to day while we're in school and make our community better, and also training ourselves for the workforce to better go into the workforce after we graduate. Coach Mike basically said, okay, that's a great idea, but if we do this, let's be strategic about it. Let's be as smart as we can about this. If we're going to do it, let's make a passive house. Let's make a more energy efficient house. Let's train the students for the trades of tomorrow while we're doing all this.
Thank you, Sterling. And I think a point to mention is that it is a pilot project, and so we're nimble, evolving as we go. The partnership that Kumasi mentioned with ADT, that was something that came along that we didn't expect. Part of that partnership, they're looking for talent, and the way that they are helping us is not only giving us solar system solar panels, but they're teaching us the specific trades that electrical students need to do to install those solar panels, so that the pathway is more natural for electrical students coming out of our programs. And then it also gives us a template for other companies for partnership. I've also been very grateful to have access to the schools and masonry classroom, for example, in the summertime. I just want to take a moment and point that certainly without leadership, but without our faculty and our teachers, this doesn't happen. Fortunately, Mr. Jones is here. Lindsey Jones, a longtime mason teacher. Yes, who is really outstanding and really helps to bring the context and the reality of what we're doing to help bridge the classroom learnings to the actual work. So I'd love for Mr. Jones to share a little bit about his experience in the 2.5 years that we've worked together, and then Justin, Sean, and Javon are there. Please share what your experience is, specific skills you learned, also the foundational skills that we're teaching. So yeah, we'll turn it over to you guys. Love to hear what you guys have to say.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank Mike. I have to tell you, man, it may make me want to cry because this.
Oh man, Jones, don't cry, Jones.
This has been an inspiration for these kids, and I can't think of them.
Oh man,
I can't think. But furthermore, Mike has brought us together. This has been a success story, and we need to have more of this, where the kids are actually getting their hands on and the real skills they need to be in the workforce. I've been doing masonry for 35 years, and what I do for these kids is all what I learned when I was in high school. I took this at Lake Clifton, 1985. So I'm giving back. I'm giving back to what my teacher said to me. You know, we got to have someone else to do this, but you can't continue to do it by yourself. And these students here are the best. They are the best. They come in, Mr. Jones, what we doing today? What we doing this today? And it has even made the classroom better. And I'll let Sean tell you about what we did the other day as a team. We even go against each other in the classroom. We do everything we can to make it better. And Mike, you are making it better for us. That's what I can say. I'm gonna turn it over to them.
And Mr., if you're able to turn on your camera so folks can see where you are and.
All right, so hi, how y'all doing? My name is Sean White. As you guys know, this is my teacher. And like he has said, Coach Mike he's my baseball coach, but he has made a lot of life-changing experiences for me. Personally, I didn't even think I was going to be able to do this in a Carver House because I'm a Mason student across the street at Carver. I've been a Mason since my freshman year going on. I'm in my junior year going into my senior year. And it's been a great experience just having the skills to apply it in a house, not just in a house, but, you know, me, because my dream is baseball, but maybe if I don't, do baseball, I have something else to uplift me and to know what I'm doing and to apply it to a house that may be sold one day to, a low profitable family is a great experience to be around, especially around the people, the work experience, the job experience, the classroom experience, all the experience I've gotten, just having me have a lot of knowledge to apply my skills and to know what I'm doing. But that's more so about me. I explain this on Javon.
Hello guys, my name's Javon Blannon. I've been at Carver for 3 years. I'm a junior now. I've been at Carver House, working at Carver House since the summer of 2021, I believe. And while at the Carver House, it's been very teaching. It's just been teaching me a lot because while at the Carver House, I've been more comfortable around the people that is a part of this program, and also having the confidence to talk to you guys as of right now. Because before Carver House, I was a very shy, reserved kid. So coming into it and then hanging out with kids and stuff like that, and then talking and getting the confidence more as to Mr. Jones and everybody uplifting me and getting me to a point where it's I know that I can do this because they're cheering me on with this program. It's been very helpful with everything. And so doing masonry and stuff like that, it's just been very good for me. But sorry for keep repeating myself, but it's been very impactful in my life. I think without this program, I probably would have not been very out there with myself. I would have been more probably still shy in my shell for real. But obviously doing this with Coach Mike, Mr. Jones, everybody a part of this program, etc., it's been very impactful. And I just appreciate that.
Very impactful.
So thank you, Coach Mike, and everybody a part of this program. So, yeah.
And thank you all for sharing it. And Mr. Jones, I think you're cutting onions in the audience.
I couldn't help it, man. I'm sorry. That's how it's been for the last 2 weeks. It has been very good. I'm sorry.
If I could just say, I'm obviously in my car. I'm not even in the space, so this is taking on a life of its own. I want to share that we're also working on foundational skills, and that was something we did with the formerly known as Career Readiness Office. I haven't committed the other one to memory, but this summer during the WIN program, we had consistent theming around the foundational skills, communication, connection, a few others. So there, as mentioned, it's a pilot project. There is opportunity to expand and grow and connect with other schools. And the other point I wanted to make, when Governor Moore here, we had 36 hours to assemble to actually be able to get access to the school. And so the district rallied in a hurry to do that. And the result of that event, the White House, the senior climate advisor from the White House was there, along with the governor, to use Carver House as a backdrop to say that Maryland is a part of the National Building Standards Coalition. At the time, there were 3 states that Maryland saying we are going to build differently to attack climate change. And so the fact that was done at Carver is a testament to the faculty, the students, and frankly, all the people in Baltimore City that are involved with this. So it is inspiring, and hopefully we continue to not only do this, continue to do it and replicate it at Carver, but at other schools as well.
So thanks, Coach Mike. I just want to take a moment and thank the entire Carver team. We did want to end this afternoon just talking, just highlighting and showcasing some of the work that our staff and students are doing. And Carver House is an incredible example of how you are able to move from classroom to application, utilizing everything that you're learning in the classroom, putting it to use so that, as one of our scholars said, when you are going to then apply for jobs, you have that experience that people want along with that certification. So at this time, again, thank you to our Carver House team. And I apologize, we ran a little bit long, but thank you for allowing us to update the Teacher and Learning Committee this afternoon on secondary success and innovation.
Christina,
Well,
can I make a request? I was so impressed. Sorry, I'm not supposed to be speaking, but I was so impressed with what Carver said, and I didn't get a chance to see.
So, hello.
Oh,
who's
sorry.
Can know who's talking.
It's Dr. Harris, ILED for Network 9. And I was so moved by what the team at Carver was saying. I wished I had an opportunity to see them. I see that there's someone in front of a camera. I would love if you could spin that computer around so we could see, I think it's Mr. Jones and some of the other members of the team, if that's possible.
And that's, I don't know if I said this, but that's a headquarters space. That's 5 houses down from the actual Carver House that we're renovating. And so we have a third space where we can congregate.
All righty. I think that we were getting a chance to see the whole team there. And thank you, Sterling, for turning on your camera as well. We see your face. We are actually well beyond time, but I could not possibly cut this beautiful presentation off. I cannot tell you the profound gratitude I have for having this be a part of the presentation, having students with us really giving their testimony about how special and important this work is. Having two educators just to say, hey, this has been meaningful. And I think it has really galvanized everybody involved, from the students to the educators in central office. And so just profoundly grateful for the presentation in totality today. But particularly my favorite part of this whole day, including my work day, has been hearing from our students. So thank you so much. I wanted to open it up to my fellow commissioners for very, very, very brief, maybe one question each, because we are a little bit over schedule and need to get back to our other presentations. And so Chair McFadden, I'll turn it to you, and then you can turn it over to Commissioner Bay.
I appreciate that. I did see Chair Slater Harrington. I did see Commissioner Bay's hand, so I want to make sure that he's acknowledged, and then I'll go after him. Commissioner Bay.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm sorry I'm unable to turn on my camera here at this time. I was curious about one thing in a lot of your presentation. I really am excited about being having been a CTE teacher for a very long time. I'm very pleased with the advances made in college and career readiness and into CTE. And I do want to have a little bit more clarity on a couple of aspects of it. So I will take that off. I will write that and send that to the board office to share those questions with you. But one thing that I do have is the industry certification aspect. When we do look at it, one of the things that has been a challenge was not so much getting past businesses that want the expertise that comes out of our classes. It's the unions that have been structured over a long time. And so have we been, our teachers come a lot from the industry. That's where most of our teachers in CTE come from. But we have not only monies from the federal government and for CTE, are we doing more partnership with those entities? And that becomes the question that I want to delve into. Maybe not now, but how is our partnerships with unions, with, because we're looking at a graduation rate from CTE, sometimes that does not mirror the certification rate. And are those certifications current and capable of maintaining our push for our students? Because we do need a feedback mechanism. What are our successes? Other than our input, what is our output, and how do we have that feedback mechanism? Those are my questions. I think I'm just so pleased as punch from what I see with Carver. And I mean, yeah, cutting onions, that was it. Y'all, it's like, all right, this is the way we feel here.
Thank you, Commissioner Bay, and I'll trust that you'll document your questions and we'll get those answered through the board office.
No problem.
Chair McFadden.
Thank you, Commissioner Slater Harrington, and thanks to the team that's presented this afternoon. Certainly to our Carver students, I will certainly let Senator Antonio Hayes know how well you all presented. This is something that he speaks about quite often in our interactions. So thank you all. Thank you to the staff there, and thank you to the students. My question is more aligned to the lack of clarity that I saw around the middle grades in the presentation this afternoon. So when we think about secondary success and innovation, and we are hiring these 9th grade on track to graduate, staff members, I see something in the appendix that talks about an initiative that includes several middle schools, but that was not lifted up enough for me in this presentation. I'm not sure if it will be somewhere else, but I'm very passionate about the middle grades, specifically because if we do the middle grades right, if we engage our middle school students well, chances are they'll be successful in the high school grades, and we can also juxtapose that success with increased graduation rate. So is anyone able to elevate more of the middle grades now? Is it coming in a different presentation to the board? Are we going to be briefed in a different way at a different time? But that was something that I was hoping to hear more about in the secondary strategy presentation, and I didn't hear as much as I thought I would.
So thank you for that, Commissioner McFadden. And I can start from the standpoint of secondary success and innovation. However, I will absolutely consult with Dr. Dabrowski around additional information around middle grades, because some of the work that's being done in our middle grades does live in teaching and learning and in other areas of academics. But one of the reasons we actually changed the name was because we know exactly what you said, specifically around setting students up for success in middle grades. So there's a few things that I just want to touch on from our office's perspective. The first is one of the things that we did when we were looking at our sub goals for the graduation goal was really think about that target for the middle grades. Previously in the middle grades, we had really just looked at promotion in core classes. And again, through some extensive studies, through our partnership with Burke out of Johns Hopkins, what we learned is one of those greatest predictors of success for grade 9 is actually the overall aggregate GPA that you leave grade 8 with. And so that was sort of the start of, okay, how do we have that North Star for middle grades? I can tell you additionally, in terms of school counseling, we do a lot of work in middle grades. Oftentimes we think of school counseling as that high school, that scheduling, that graduation planning. But our school counselors do an amazing job in supporting our students in middle grades. This office started with the high school schedule. We are looking into what scheduling looks like in our middle grades because we are a K-8 district. We have so few standalone middle schools that are just 6 to 8. We're looking at how do we, from a scheduling standpoint, set students up in middle grades for more success. When they get into high school, whether that is acquiring high school credits in the middle grades, engaging in more rigorous coursework. And so again, there's a lot of intersection between this team and other teams in academics. And then just a couple other things I want to highlight. You did see in the appendix, that is the support that our career coaches will be doing with our middle grade students. We are starting small, but we know that for our students who are looking for post-secondary outcomes, either going into a 2-year, 4-year, or directly into career, a lot of that work starts in middle grades, which is why in this initial year of having career coaches, we do have some schools who will be engaging with our coaches at the middle grades. And then last highlight, we did host our Miss James and our post-secondary success team were co-hosts with NACAC last week for their college fair. And we had 550 middle grade students attend that college fair. And so again, our office's work is to really think about how do we back map post-secondary outcomes from a wraparound standpoint to support students in middle grades.
Thank you for that. I still, and I hear everything that you're saying. I still want to see more intentionality throughout the series of not just here today, but just in general throughout the series of our discussions in teaching and learning, just a bit more focus. All of the grades are important. But I don't think that we hear enough about middle school strategy. So I appreciate you raising that and lifting that. And we look forward to what comes in the days ahead. So thank you, Commissioner Slater-Harrington.
Great. I know that I trust our academics team will be folding in more information around those middle grades. We know how pivotal that is. I want to invite everyone to again, turn off your cameras if you're not presenting. Want to just say our final thank yous to our last presentation, and then prepare for our next presentation from Dr. Wu, who will be giving us an update on the district's continuous improvement efforts. Hello, Dr. Wu, and welcome.
Good afternoon, commissioners and staff. Amy Winchester is going to be joining me, who's our Director of Continuous Improvement for this presentation. And Commissioner Slater-Harrington, like you, hearing from the students in that last presentation was the highlight of my day too. And so it is very hard to follow students with a presentation, yes. Let me tell you. I almost wish we had gone first.
We'll keep that in mind next time.
So we will try, I know we're behind in time, so we will try to be succinct in our presentation. So thank you for having us this afternoon. So we wanted to give an update on the continuous improvement work of the district. We provided a presentation last year as well. So this is an update from last year. This next slide talks about the alignment with the board priorities around instruction, as well as recruiting, retaining, and supporting our educators, and working continuously towards equity at all levels. And I think you'll see that threaded throughout our presentation this afternoon. So to start, this is a kind of quick refresher, a reminder around the way that we think about continuous improvement here at City Schools. And so this next slide kind of is the way that we talk about or define continuous improvement here as a structured approach that we use to identify and solve complex problems in a way that helps us to produce consistent, high quality results every day for every person or every student or adult. And really the way that we think about continuous improvement here is that it is really about how we do the work and not an additional or new initiative, right? It is about embedding the principles of a continuous improvement in the key things that we are doing as a system. And so that's really how we think about continuous improvement. The slide that you see here is kind of the structure in which we talk about the continuous improvement work. And what you'll see here is on the left-hand side, we talk about as the strategy component of the continuous improvement work. On the right-hand side is the doing component. So the first piece in terms of strategy is really thinking through what are we really trying to accomplish? What problem are we trying to solve? And then thinking through how do we know what we're doing is making a positive impact, right? And in order to do that, you have to measure what you're doing and be clear about the strategies that you're utilizing to accomplish that. And so that's really thinking through the strategy component of continuous improvement and being really deliberate and thoughtful about that. And then once we kind of think through the strategy piece, then it is about the doing part. And we talk about, I think folks have heard the term PDSA cycle before. And so we really think about that as the engine for our testing and for learning. So once we have the strategy component figured out, we then engage in these cycles, right, to implement the strategy that we have put in place. And then to really kind of make sure that we're looking at and engaging and studying around whether or not that strategy is effective. And so this is kind of the way that these principles are what we really think about when we think about continuous improvement. And so what we've really found and what we really tried to hone in on this next slide is this piece in the PDSA cycle that's really about the study act part of the PDSA cycle. And I would say that what we have found, right, and this is true in districts around the country, and you see this quote here on the bottom left from Karen Chenoweth's book, Districts That Succeed, which is that, districts and schools are often very good at doing the planning and the doing part of that PDSA cycle, but not very good at making sure we're studying what we're doing and then making adjustments based on what we learned when we study what we're doing. And so that part is really hard. And it's something that we're trying to think through how we make sure we embed in all of our work, whether it's here at central office or at schools when they're implementing the strategies at their schools to improve student achievement. And so the way that we have really been doing that throughout the system is in a couple of different ways. So we've been working with teams, particularly at central office, to really help them think through what their key strategies are. So that strategy component side of the CI structure that I went through a few slides ago. So making sure they're clear about what strategies they're using, making sure they know how they're going to measure what they're doing. And so that then goes into kind of the consulting part where we're working with them on those principles, sharing with them tools on how the questions they should be thinking about, the questions they should be asking themselves as they're thinking about, well, what can we actually measure to determine whether or not what we're doing is effective or not? And so we work with teams here in central office on that. And that also is about building the capacity, right, of teams to be able to do that work once they start embedding that kind of mindset and these principles in how they approach their work. It's building the capacity of team members throughout central office, and also you'll see with schools as well, so that they can use this mindset as they're approaching their work. And so this is the kind of summary slide of how continuous improvement has really grown over the the last few years, and how the structure of kind of the rest of our presentation and update on continuous improvement. And so we're really really proud of the work that we've done over the course of the last 5 years on continuous improvement. It really started actually in school year 2018-19 when we were trying to get some additional support from external funders around the Blueprint strategy for literacy. And we applied for a planning grant with the Gates Foundation at that time. And it was a planning grant just for $500,000. And when they saw what we were proposing in terms of embedding the continuous improvement principles into how we do the work and not just for a particular, initiative, they were really drawn to that. And they ended up awarding us $12 million to start our BSLIC teacher improvement, which is the Baltimore Secondary Literacy work. And we were actually the only district in the country that got a direct grant from Gates. Gates for this work usually only funds intermediaries that work with school districts. They don't fund directly school districts. So we were the only district that got that. And they have really supported this work through the course of the last few years. And in fact, now the total amount of money we've received from Gates for this work, as you'll see on these slides, has grown to $27 million, is how much we've gotten from Gates for this work. And so a lot of what you see on this slide, particularly the work in schools, has been funded through that external funding source. And so what you see here is in school year 1920 and 2021, the kind of yellow box on the left-hand side is we started off really with that BSLIC Teacher Improvement Fellowship, which was focused on secondary literacy. And then in the following year, in 2021, we then expanded that to the 9th grade On Track to Graduate work, which you heard actually referenced in the previous presentation from Michael Moss around scaling that On Track to Graduate work with 9th graders throughout all of our high schools this year. It actually started in the 2021 school year with a small group, as he mentioned, of pilot schools. We started that work, and that was funded through Gates. At that time, we also were starting to work with central office on specific improvement projects that they wanted to look at. So for example, you see ECT improvement project, we were working with them on understanding how transfers worked and to help them map out what that looks like, both for a student and families, and how can we improve that process for our students and families. Then in that middle box, which is school year 2021 through 22, we continued to have that BSLIC teacher fellowship in a subset of our schools. And then we expanded that to really engage with literacy coaches in general, right? Even in schools that were not the BSLIC teacher fellowship schools, to expand that kind of continuous improvement thinking and the improvement cycles to our literacy coaches. So that would be utilized at more schools across the system. And then we also continue to work on expand the OTG 9th grade On Track to Graduate work in that school year as well. And then we continue to work with central office, as I mentioned earlier, to just embed those principles and that mindset into how people do the work. We did a lot of work with the cabinet around key office indicators to help measure and think through what are the key bodies of work for each cabinet member and how to make sure we're measuring that in order to ensure that there is actually improvement in the strategies that we've put in place to address the issues that we want to address. And then last year, in 2022-23, which is the right-hand box, we continued again with BSLIC, the literacy coaches, the On Track to Graduate work, and really getting that set up for what you'll see, this year, as Michael Moss mentioned in the previous presentation, to expand that On Track to Graduate work actually to every single high school, every school with a 9th grade. We also got additional money to start thinking about a math improvement network. So you see that listed here under 2022-23. That work was in the planning stages in 22-23, and Amy will talk a little bit about how we are planning that to really kick off in full force this year. And then we also, in the spring of last school year, started really engaging with principals around the PDSA cycles, that doing engine of the continuous improvement, so that they could start using it as a part of how they approach their work in schools as well. And we're going to continue to expand on that in this school year as well, which we'll talk about at the end of the presentation. And you see here in central office, we continue to expand the work that we're doing in terms of working with different offices on ways that they continue to improve their practices and the work that they do. And so what you'll see for the rest of the presentation is us go into each of these areas. So 9th grade On Track, the secondary literacy work, as well as the math network and scaling with principals in the 4 different sections. And you'll see kind of what we accomplished in the 2022-23 school year and the way that we're scaling and expanding that work in this current school year. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amy so she can talk about 9th grade on track.
Great. Thank you, Jenny. Good afternoon, everyone. And so we're referencing OTG, and that's just the acronym we use when we talk about the 9th grade on track to graduate work. And so one of the biggest pain points that we learned alongside our schools last year was trying to figure out how do we deploy the right resources to the students who need them. And so oftentimes there's a lot of tools that exist in the school. And so it's a matter of making sure that we're matching them with the students so that we can ameliorate the root cause for why they might be struggling. And so what we came to in the middle of last year, as well as now what we're rolling out at all of our schools this year, is this iterative cycle for coordinated support for our 9th grade on track initiative. And there's 4 steps to this that all of the schools are engaging with alongside grade data and attendance data to really understand which students need additional supports, why do they need additional support, so really digging into that root cause, and then ultimately being able to provide the right resource or support team in order to support that student more deeply. And so in this first step, it's really about segmenting. It's looking across all of the students and understanding what needs and supports there are, and then recognizing that not just one team is actually going to be the one to serve all students, but really being able to access the special education team or the SST structure and team in order to support every single student that needs additional support in that particular moment. And then from there, it's about each of those teams being able to dig deeply into each of those students to understand the root cause, because often schools were saying, hey, a student is off track, and so we're going to put them in coach class. And that worked for some students, but it didn't work for all. And so we really wanted to address this kind of one-size-fit-all intervention. And so by digging in and really understanding the why behind a student's struggling either academically or in attendance was really important for us to then be able to give them the appropriate support. And then from there, being able throughout the course of the quarter, understanding is the intervention that was offered and provided to a student, is it happening? Did it work? Are we seeing signals of improvement? Because we don't want to wait until the end of the quarter. We want to be able to look at this on a biweekly basis so that we can really make those adaptations and adjustments so that every student is truly supported. And so this is something that the schools we worked with last year, 12 of our high schools, that they tested, and we saw some early signals of this actually having impact on student outcomes. And this year we're rolling it out to all of our high schools that have a 9th grade on track to graduate coordinator who will be doing this with their 9th grade house teams, as well as with their leadership within the building. And we run this cycle every quarter because we're using progress report card data, as well as daily attendance. And one of the other pain points that our schools elevated up to us that we wanted to help solve for was this idea of understanding what does it mean to be off track, and how do we know which supports for which students? And so traditionally, the way that we look at our early warning indicator data, specifically around this idea of, is a student on track, meaning that they're passing their classes and they're attending school, or are they off track, where they might have a specific course flag or attendance flag that gives us some inclination that they might need additional support. And so what you see here is actually a visualization representing this idea of segmentation, which is something that we found was really helpful in being able to deploy the right resources and tools to students. And that is that we would look at this in like this binary way. So who's on track and who's off track. And what often happened is schools felt really overwhelmed, especially this kind of small group, this small team in the school that was really focusing in on 9th graders, because it could amount to a lot of students and not really knowing where to start or how to kind of attack this to find the right solution. And so one of the things that our partners at Burke helped us to do is to start to think about some of that variation within that group of students that were identified as off track. And so what you see here is kind of that parsing out of that variation so that we could start to understand what are the appropriate teams and supports that we could deploy to students based off, again, the root cause for why they might be struggling. And so what you see here is in that kind of green is students that didn't have an attendance flag, but they do have a course flag. So that tells us something about maybe they need additional support in a class or a couple of classes. And so a specific team could really hone in on those students to identify those root causes in hopes of providing the appropriate support to help them get on track by the end of the quarter. And then the students in yellow are students who had both a course flag and attendance flag. They're probably not chronically absent, but the attendance is starting to creep in and probably have an impact on their academic performance. And then the students in the red are students that have both a course flag and that are chronically absent. And so what we're often seeing in this population is students who are, have multiple, they're struggling with their classes, and we predict as a result of not being in school very much. And finally, we recognized that there is this group of students that already has a really strong structure in our schools, which is our students with disabilities and having that special education team. And so this is really like when we have a student that is struggling academically, how can we deploy that team that is already in existence and knows those students deeply to be able to identify the supports needed for them to be able to thrive in those classes. And so when we look at kind of the initial signals of our small case study that we did at the end of this year to look at how does this cycle that is really grounded in these improvement principles and tools, how is this helping our schools to be able to identify students who need supports and then understand why they're struggling and what a specific intervention they can offer that will address and ameliorate that root cause. And so what you see on the left-hand side here is a graph that's showing 12 students across the schools that we were working with, and they're in the purple. And so what we're looking at is over time, over the course of the year, we want to look at the number of course failures that they had starting in Q1 to Q4. And what we see is a signal that through the use of this process and these tools of segmentation, we're able to see that it perhaps is targeting the root causes that we're identifying, and we're able to actually reduce the number of course failures that they're experiencing. And we see a similar trend line on the right-hand side around mean GPA. And while this isn't a good comparison, just for reference, those gray lines are representing all the other students that we chose not to focus on in terms of like looking at those initial signals. And so that's giving us some insight as to what we're doing is potentially getting at this piece that schools had named as a problem at the beginning of last school year, which is if we don't know what the root cause is for why students are struggling, how can we provide them with a well-matched intervention? And so this is showing us that as we continue to do this in 23 schools this year, understanding that this will have an impact on students' outcomes academically. We also wanted to look at not just student outcomes, but how is this process of continuous improvement and the routines and kind of living within the principles and building those mindsets impacting the educators that we are working closely with within these schools. And what we found that is something that we saw also last year when we shared with all of you this work is that practitioners who engage in this continuous improvement approach, they're reporting that it's having a significant impact on their practice, whether that's in the classroom or as a counselor or a leader in the school, and that ultimately then is leading to an impact on the relationships that they have and continue to sustain with their students. And so for this year, we have already scaled from the 12 schools that we started with as part of the grant to 23 schools, which are all the schools that have allocated funds and hired an on track to graduate coordinator. And so what that has given us the ability to do also is embed this continuous improvement training and professional learning within the role itself. And so those those 23 coordinators are a part of this improvement community, and they're a part of the continuous improvement practices that we've been doing over the last couple of years. And then in terms of this ICCS routine, the steps, the 4 steps that schools are taking to really identify the needs of students, we're again scaling this because this is really a foundational piece of the 9th grade initiative this year. But we're also thinking about how this could be replicated in places like SST for high school and also in the middle grades as it relates to the work that has been done around the early warning indicators. And so now I want to talk briefly about our secondary literacy improvement community, which we acknowledge as the Baltimore Secondary Literacy Improvement Community, and we serve students in grades 6 through 12, specifically around improving their outcomes related to MCAP and iReady. And so for this past school year, we were focused on 2 areas specifically. The first one was working with teachers across 19 schools to test fluency protocols for 6th through 12th graders, either in a small group setting within the ELA classroom or in a pull-out intervention structure. And we were using the oral reading fluency DIBELS 8th edition as our measure that we were collecting monthly along with all the teachers and students who were participating. And the second one is the using the writing revolution pre-writing strategies. So we had annotations, we had sentence level work, and then we had paragraph planning, again, in grades 6 through 12. And we were using curriculum-based writing tasks as our measure, such as the focusing question tasks in Wit and Wisdom, using that MCAP rubric because we wanted to be able to look at the likelihood of what we might see on MCAP for writing for our students. And so when we look at the data there for specifically for our fluency students and looking only at middle school, which is where we saw the greatest impact, we see that when looking at the impact of those protocols on our middle school students at the end of the year, we can see their trajectories around literacy improving, and in fact, improving in ways that we wouldn't have predicted if we just looked at where they started at the beginning of the year. And so this graph is showing students' percentile change in oral reading fluency, or what we call ORF, compared to the national norms. And you'll see that there's one graph for each grade level, 6th, 7th, and 8th. And so for example, if we're looking at the 6th grade example on the left, we see that the students who participated in those fluency protocols with their teachers, they started on average at the 19th percentile for ORF when we look at the national norms. And by the end of the year, they grew to the 27th percentile on average. And so in putting it in another way, our 6th graders started out reading at about 88 words correct per minute at the beginning of the year. And if we expected them to just grow based on what national norms say, we would have expected them to read at about 109 words correct per minute. But instead, we saw that our students were reading at about 124 words correct per minute on average, which is a similar result that we saw for 7th and 8th graders. And so this is exciting when we think about how much more reading our students are getting done, but not just that. We also heard from students through our empathy interviews and other feedback that they shared with their teachers that they were feeling much more confident about reading because they were, when they were doing these fluency passages, they were doing it with curriculum texts. So in Wit and Wisdom, they were using the fluency homework passages, or they were using the question set passages. And so students felt more confident being able to engage in the general classroom instruction because they had seen the passages, or they at least had an opportunity to really interact with them, and they felt confident in that. And when we shift over to writing, we were looking at 2 things in writing, because one of the things that we found is that for writing, we had about 33% of our students receive loss, or what is the lowest observable scale score. And so that means they didn't score anything, and that could be because they copied, or they didn't write enough, or they didn't write at all. So one of the things we wanted to do was increase the number of students who, in an independent writing task, actually wrote something that got us a score. And so what we found when we were focused on this loss is that over the course of last year, our students who were engaging in our writing interventions with teachers, we actually saw that loss percentage decreased. And so at the beginning, we started with about 30% of our students who received a loss. And by the end of the year, we saw that decrease down to 9%. And so that gives us some signal that the pre-writing strategies that we have been implementing with students has helped them to feel less anxious about being able to attempt a first draft or write something independently when they're given an on-demand writing task. And then we also saw that the students who didn't receive a loss, who actually got a score, we wanted to improve the quality of their writing so that they could have an increased score overall on the rubric. And so when we look at the students who didn't receive the loss at the beginning of the year in our data, we saw that their mean score on the written expression portion of the MCAP writing rubric also increased. And so we saw a small increase from 1.72 on that written expression score to 1.98 at the end of the year. And when we look at the rubric score overall, which is out of 7 when you include that written convention component, we saw that also increase from a 3.1 at the beginning of the year to a 3.6 at the end of the year. So again, we're seeing those signals that the improvement structures and the protocols that we're doing in fluency and writing are impacting students' ability to engage confidently and successfully in both the curriculum and on these MCAP writing tasks. And similar to what we saw with our OTG network, the teachers are also sharing that this is having an impact on their practice, specifically around how they are seeing their professional practice, how that's impacting their experience with their students and how they interact with their students. And also this ability to be able to actually take data and turn it into insight. So to Jenny's point, being able to not just do something and have some data, but study that data and know what to do next with it and not necessarily get paralyzed by all the possibilities. And so this again is just reinforcing for us that this routinized way of doing this continuous improvement approach is really having an impact on not just our students, but also our teachers. And so for our secondary literacy specifically, we're spreading it. We've had a lot of teachers interested in wanting to do this in their classrooms. And so our fellows were able to present their protocols and kind of how to do this so that other teachers could replicate that during the Adolescent Literacy Summer PD. But in addition to that, we've had some principals and school leaders approach us about wanting this to also be something that they're doing across their school. And so this year we have 6 schools that have opted into our Fluency Fellowship where they're doing it at the school level. So they're the ones providing teachers with the space to actually do these improvement routines. And we're supporting them and thinking about how they can use some of the data practices to support doing the fluency at scale in their middle grades, and in some cases 4th and 5th grade. In addition to that, this Teacher Improvement Fellowship has become a sustaining feature of the work that we're doing, mostly because it's the way we've packaged how to do the structure for continuous improvement in some sort of systematic way. And so like Jenny mentioned, we have received additional funding from the Gates Foundation to launch a math network. As well as we're thinking about how do pieces of this fellowship integrate into the PLC work that is coming out of the academics office, thinking about how PLCs run in the district, and also thinking about how this might integrate in other places as we think about helping teachers to engage in the improvement process for their practice and with their students. And real quickly, because this is our newest project and we're actually going to launch it on Friday, our math network, which is taking the principles of both of the OTG and the BSLIC network and replicating it into a context around math, specifically in grades 3 through 5. And so we actually are partnering with Lindsay Valentine in CLN3, working with her 16 schools to really dig in deep into this idea of what does it mean to be building more fluent mathematicians in our 3 to 5 students, and understanding that this is something that principals in that CLN have really been kind of exploring over this past school year. And so we wanted to bring in some of these improvement structures to be able to learn more deeply and quickly. And so as of today, we actually have closed our application window for our fellows, and we have 16 fellows across 10 of the schools in CLN3, which is really exciting to have that representation and to be able to learn very deeply with them. And they're going to be doing a lot of those same structures that we just talked about with OTG and BSLIC, specifically around the routines of identifying those curriculum-based changes that are grounded in research and evidence, and then being able to do some of those PDSA cycles and generating that data so we can see very quickly what's working for which students and what conditions we need in order to do that successfully.
Thanks, Amy. And so I'm just going to close this out with our last slide, which is about scaling continuous improvement in all of our schools. As I mentioned earlier, we started some professional development with our principals last spring so that they could start working through how they would embed these continuous improvement routines and structures and mindsets into how they approach their work day to day, so that it's not a separate project or a separate program, but something that they utilize to do their work in terms of how they do their work. And so we're working right now with principals so that for this first quarter, they're doing those PDSA cycles in their schools, and they're aligned to their SPP and district goals. We're starting out with attendance, but we will be working through the other district goals as well around literacy, math, and ninth grade on track. And so we're really excited about that work, and we'll continue to provide training and professional development for principals and school teams on implementing that and kind of scaling that and growing that throughout the course of this school year so that we can continue to embed these principles with our schools and how they approach their work. And it's really about having that mindset, utilizing data, as I said, studying that data, making the adjustments as they see something is working or not working so that we can more quickly make those changes in order to support our students and help them achieve what we know that they can with the support that we can provide. So with that, we will close out our presentation on continuous improvement and happy to answer any questions that the commissioners might have.
Sure. Thanks, Dr. Wu and Amy Winchester, correct? Yes. Thank you so much. That was very compelling information, and I'm just really proud of your work to build a culture of continuous improvement. Particularly interested in our ability to scale. I see we're doing small tests to change, but how we are able to scale that. And so I would love to hear more about that as we move forward in the school year. I see, on your last slide, you did say you're working on that starting with attendance, but I really see this effort as the way to accelerate to meet our literacy. And we've set some pretty aggressive literacy and math goals, and this continuous improvement process will be pivotal and critically important to advance that work. Wanted to open it up for my fellow commissioners to ask any questions.
Thank you, Chair Slater Harrington, and thanks to the team working. Illuminate for us a bit how this work aligns to our CSI schools, and is the work that's happening here is it directly aligned to the schools that have been identified as comprehensive support schools by MSDE?
I can start that, and Amy, feel free to jump in if you have anything to add. So we, have been looking at what the CSI schools have been asked to create in terms of plans and trying to make sure that we align those plans with what we're asking schools to do. So part of those plans talk about what are the strategies, right, that you are implementing to address whether it's attendance or literacy or math. And so we're trying to make sure that we align what schools are putting in terms of those strategies with then what we ask them to really focus in on as they're implementing those strategies. What are you measuring, right, in terms of progress monitoring to look at whether or not your strategy is actually working, right? And then how are you making adjustments based on what you're monitoring, right, in order to make sure that improvement is happening. So we're really working to continue to align that. My understanding is that right now where we are in the process with CSI is submitting plans plans. And then we have not received yet from MSDE kind of the progress monitoring tools. But once we receive those, we're going to work to make sure those are aligned with how we're thinking about the continuous improvement work that schools are doing.
And I appreciate you raising Districts That Lead, a book by Karen Chenoweth. I know that members of the city schools team read and studied that, and the board will be also. I think it's important for us to be engaged in that type of learning. The reason why I asked about CSI, I'm in that process as well. You know, we're in that work, and I would hate for, you know, all of the great things that we're hearing to almost fall on deaf ears because it's another thing, right? It's something else that we have to do. And the reason why I referenced the book is because if we pinpoint specific things that we need to do well with, that can help us over time see improvement, right? But if things constantly are changing, in addition to staff, right? Because that's a significant part of the lift, the work lift. I just wanted to raise that. I don't want the work to be lost here. And then I want to say this with clarity. I don't want it to be another thing for schools where it's too much to monitor, right? It's too much to do because it's so much. So that was on my brain as I was listening to the presentation and looking at the materials that you all provided. That CSI plan, as you mentioned, is hefty within itself. And so it's really important to make sure that there is alignment so that schools feel supported in the work and they're really able to actualize improved results for our young people. But thank you to the work that you're doing. I just wanted to raise that because it's a lot of work to do and it's important work to do, but we don't want it to be so scattered to where because ultimately we won't see improvement, right? If we have a lot of, I'm not calling it chaos, but just a lot of things happening. And we want to make sure schools and school leaders are supporting getting the work done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Chair McFadden, it's almost like you were in meetings that we've had about talking about the continuous improvement work, because we have been very deliberate in trying to make sure that this does not become another thing or another project, additional thing, right? So trying to figure out how we embed it within the things that schools are already doing, but just thinking about, it's not about what you're doing, but how you're doing it, right? Like, how are you approaching the work? And so again, looking at the CSI work, making sure we're trying to align it. We spent a lot of time, you know, talking about that and how we wanted to approach it. And I think you're absolutely right too about, you know, when you read the book Districts That Succeed, it talks about this concept of alignment and focus, right? And so, you know, not doing a whole bunch of different things, but how do you make sure the things that you're doing are aligned, and how are you making sure that the work you're doing is focused, right? So like, we're not trying to do another project on the side here with another thing. It is about the district goals, right? We've all like aligned around the district goals. So how are we making sure that we're utilizing these structures and these mindsets to try and address the things that we already said are important, which are the district goals, and not on a bunch of other different things, right? And so that's why you also see the alignment of the actual, whether it's BSLIC or the Math Network or On Track to Graduate, all aligned around the district goal areas, because we know that that is where our focus should be. And that is about how we support schools and how they reach those goals, right? Like the structures and the mindsets to help them get to those goals is really our focus, and making sure that it doesn't become another new thing. So thanks so much for raising that.
Thank you.
So agreed as well. I think one thing when you're trying to change the culture is to help people see it is not more work, it is the work. It is actually the work. And like you've said so beautifully, is how we get our work done. So we're not adding more, we are aligning and making sure that we understand as a mindset that we all have to continuously improve. And it is not more work, it is the work that we have set out to do together. So I'm excited to see how this scales and evolves and to learn. I know that we're just going to continue to see more indications of the success of this project by our scores and when we get more reports on how our students are doing. So thank you. I think we have a pretty large procurement calendar to get into now. And so first up, I have had to step away from my computer because the sun was in my eyes. So first up, I see Shabray, you have your camera on, so I'll let you jump right in. I'll let you jump right into it, and just going to ask that everyone be brief, but effective in their explanations. Thank you.
Got it. Well, hello, Teaching and Learning Committee. We have 6 procurement items on the agenda for consideration. And are there any questions for items 1 through 6?
Did we lose Commissioner Bay? I did not hear him. And then I see you, Chair McFadden.
Thank you, Commissioner Slater Harrington. I am looking at first, good afternoon, Shabray, Ms. Matthews.
Good afternoon, Commissioner McFadden.
I'm looking at 14.01, E-Doctrina. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, is there someone on to speak to this? This is something that most likely would have gone through operations, correct?
Correct, yeah.
I'm just looking at, I see how it was used in Wacomico County and Prince George's County and other places. If someone is able to just elevate how this will enhance the Oracle program, it aligns to ERP, correct? Or
Correct,
no?
Jesse.
Yes. Hi, Commissioners.
Hi.
Hi. Jessie Papia, Director of Employee Effectiveness with Human Capital. So as part of the broader AMP project, where
Right.
we're moderate, right. So when we were going through the RFP process, what we were noticing is that some of the vendors and products that were really strong in some areas around finance, core HR kind of functionality didn't have the same type of functions that we would need inherent to them for the ways in which evaluations in school districts are conducted. And so we went out to an RFI in order to get some proposals and more information for products that closer to out of their box would better meet our needs and the needs of school leaders, educators, folks in district office when it comes to evaluation. So just as part of the why, that's how we got into a process and approach in which we have this contract we're bringing to you, or this proposal that is adjacent and is intended to align with the overall AMP shift. Specific to this product, there are some things in which, which we've heard from some colleagues in other LEAs that are really meeting their needs. When we think about the way in which our teacher and principal evaluations in particular are conducted, performance data is gathered from different components or sources. They're aggregated together, and then you end up having a total score and a overall annual evaluation rating. And there were some of the other products don't do that. Like we might have actually been asking our supervisors to have to calculate themselves what these like different components are. So there's some work that this system is going to do and just like take off people's plates. The other thing we're really excited about, and sometimes I get nervous saving these letters, but for student learning objectives and SLOs, we think that there's going to be a way to really streamline some of the technical steps for teachers and school leaders. Right now, what we've done is really configure Blackboard to try to meet the needs and the steps so that thousands of people can engage in the process. And this is something with eDoctrina has more inherent functionality and modules that can pull in student data, help people see their student rosters, rather than asking our teachers and our school leaders to export data about our students from one place and then upload them in another for evaluation purposes. We're trying to streamline that for them. So there's a couple of things that are pretty technical, but those are some of the highlights, and I'm happy to expand further.
No, that was helpful. And I think that if the chair, if our committee chair here isn't able to provide clarity to any thoughts that commissioners may have, I would just encourage you all to be prepared for our upcoming board meeting to be able to share the purpose of this to help streamline processes, particularly around the evaluation cycle. But I'm not anticipating questions, but if there are, it most likely will be around this particular item, most likely from members of our operations committee on the board.
I really appreciate that. Thank you, Commissioner.
Yep.
Chair. Sorry, Chair.
I'm not the chair of this committee. Passing it back to Commissioner Slater Harrington.
Apologies all around. Thank you.
Once chair, always chair. I'll take it. Thank you for that. I'm wondering, before I ask my question, if Commissioner Bay has any questions with regard to this or any of the other procurement items.
I am I'm holding my questions right now because they will require some in-depth analysis. And so I'm going to put them in written form and direct them to the board office and allow it to be distributed from there. Okay?
Can I ask, is there anything that would warrant pulling an agenda item?
Not right now.
Okay, thank you. All righty. I had some curiosity and just wanted to see if there was a team member who can expound on unique learning system supplemental instructional materials.
Item 12.1.
Yes. This was for students with significant cognitive disability. Just curious if this is in alignment with an established curriculum. Is this a supplement? It looks like a supplement. And just wanted to learn a little bit more about it.
Let's see, so the authors, okay, there's Donna.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi,
Yes, Commissioner, this is a supplement for 3 of our public separate day schools to utilize this enhanced program that is multifaceted and incorporates a few components that meets the needs of our most significant students there who receive instruction with alternative standards.
And I know this is in the weeds. It says it includes teacher professional development. Would that go into effect this school year?
Yes, professional development for the teachers and school staff.
And has this been used prior to?
In Baltimore City?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Not at this capacity. There was portions of the unique system. This is the whole comprehensive approach that the vendor has to align both the instruction and progress monitoring and the supports for teachers, parents, and administrators with our most significant needs groups of students.
The only school district that doesn't use it. We're the only one that doesn't.
Is someone else giving feedback?
I think so.
That was someone else speaking. I'll defer to whoever's speaking who wanted to come on and speak as well.
Sounds like they may have had a change of heart. I'll rest there with my questions. Thank you. I don't think, Chair McFadden, yes.
I just want to, Mr. Bushrod, if we could, and Shabray, update the evidence of effectiveness a bit more to discuss where this is used. and potential success of use in other LEAs and other jurisdictions. I think that may just enhance this particular letter for the full board as it comes to be voted on. If this is something new to our system, where has it worked? What are the benefits as it relates to school systems that are similar to ours in demographic? Yes, this is for our students that are in separate public day schools, but what has the success rate? What has the effectiveness been with the use of N2Y?
Okay, we'll make sure that it's added for the board meeting next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you both, and thank you, Chair McFadden, for that more nuanced question and addition. I appreciate that. I'm learning. All righty. No, I don't see any other questions regarding any of our other procurement items.
Okay. All right, thank you so much for your time.
Am I missing anything? Nope. Okay. All righty. So I think our next meeting date is November 7th. That will be, again, a virtual meeting where we will have a presentation on fine arts and some compliance reports around curriculum and behavioral intervention. We'll remind everyone on the call today that public comments can be registered with our board office if anyone is interested in making public comments. And amazingly, we're going to, I'll recognize the chair for any closing comments or anything like that. And if he has none, then we'll adjourn.
I do quickly want to wish all of our principals a happy Principal Month. This is National Principal Month for all of our principals everywhere. Leading a school is not an easy feat. And so thank you all for your commitment, your sacrifice, especially the good principals, the principals who put their heart, their sweat, they're really committed to children. Thank you all for all that you do each and every day, and to the work that you're leading in all of our school communities. Thank you. And to former principals, right? I know we have some former principals on the call, so thank you all for the work that you do, but specifically the principals in the work right now. Thank you all.
Wonderful.
And hopefully managers and ILEDs and everyone on is planning to do something very nice for your principals.
And special and recognition. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Always offering great celebration. So, all righty. If I see no other comments, questions, or concerns, we're going to go ahead and we always do, they said. We'll go ahead and adjourn now at 5:22. You have 8 minutes left. Enjoy the balance of your time.
Peace.